Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Let's Talk It Out podcast. I'm your host, Alec Schultz, aka Trey Busy. I want to thank you all for tuning in live tonight. You could have been anywhere else, but you decided to come in and listen to the Let's Talk It Out podcast, and I greatly appreciate that. Hello to everybody in the chat room and everyone who's listening back to this later on. Before I go too further, I want to thank John Buffon for coming on last week. John did an excellent job having a conversation with me and opening it up and getting the chat room to engage and be fired up about the conversation we're having. I really appreciate him for that. And I appreciate previous guests and all the future guests. But before we go too much further, I should say, I'd like to let you know I'm not alone tonight. I have a very special guest tonight with me. She's going to be a huge part of the conversation. She's going to break it all down for you. She's going to let you know about herself. She's a mental health therapist. She works with children. My guest tonight, her name is Andrea Boyd. Andrea, tell people a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Andrea Boyd, and what kind of stuff? Just about my mental health stuff?
Whatever you would like the people to know
I want
about
to
you.
share? Okay. Well, in terms of, let's keep it about, let's talk it out. So currently I'm with Metropolitan Family Services doing crisis therapy with adolescents ages 6 to 21. And what I do is 90 days of intensive crisis therapy, working with the youth that are suicidal or homicidal. And we work on, coping skills. We work on them basically learning how to create alternatives to have a better life for themselves. And I love what I do. I tell all my clients that. I hope tonight I can give a little more insight about crisis work and any other things that come up in the chat room.
The chat room is probably grateful to have you here tonight. So everybody's saying hello. What's up, Heidi? My mom says hi to you, Andrea. Justin with the praying hands. What's going on, Justin? So, Andrea, before we go too much further, you said suicidal kids. I want to ask you, because a phenomenon has been going on the internet for the last few days. It's this thing about the quote unquote Momo challenge. It's apparently, so on a lot of these videos that these kids are watching on YouTube with like Pepper the Pig and stuff like that, they are showing videos of instructions of how they had this creature pop up, or this character pops up that tries to show the kids how to commit suicide or tell them how to harm themselves and stuff like that. I want to ask you, like, have you talked to any of the kids about it that you work with?
I have not as of yet. This week actually is the week that I've been really seeing it a lot. And, it's more so for the smaller kids. And right now the population that I have for the most part are, older kids that probably are not watching those stations. But I myself have a 3-year-old, so I've been trying to make sure I'm watching out for it, and plan on, letting parents that I do see that are in the age group that this advertisement is popping up on, aware of it, in case, they don't have social medias, or they aren't, real big on following trends that are going on. But it doesn't surprise me that, something like this is happening.
It surprises me a little bit because, at first they make it sneaky. Apparently, like, you don't see it for the beginning of the whatever video they're watching, but towards the middle or something like that, apparently the character jumps in, and I have no idea, like, who has the time of day or the will to just sit there and do something like this, but they put it in there. And they let the kids know, like, how to harm themselves. And apparently it tells the kids, like, hey, if you tell your parents, like, something, I'm doing this, they're going to harm them or something like that. I don't get why, like, that's the thing. Like, who comes up with that? Now, when we were much younger, not to give away anybody's age, but when we were much younger, we didn't really have electronics like that. We didn't look at YouTube and stuff like that. When we were kids, we were outside. I posted about it earlier. I said our Momo challenge was somebody pulling up in a car saying they have candy. That was our Momo when we were kids.
Right.
Now these kids nowadays, they have these tablets and their parents leave them alone looking at YouTube and stuff because they're quiet. But they're looking at these videos And I mean, I'm saying it because a lot of people do listen to the show, and I want, if they haven't seen it, I'm letting it out there. It's
Right.
called the Momo Challenge. You should look it up on Google. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of documentaries or different
Mhm.
links or something that's going to pop up. But you guys need to see this because it's very intriguing to me that they have this character that pops up in these videos and tells
Mhm.
kids how to cut themselves, turn the stove on while everybody sleep at night,
Yep.
put a fork inside the electric socket. Like this is insane to me that this is going on and
Mhm.
this had to be a topic. But I just want to throw that out there because that's crazy to
Mhm.
me. So my mother says this thing is a great evil and deception for children. Yeah, because kids are very impersonable. They see something and they wanna they listen to it. They're like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Uh, just like when they had that little Charlie challenge or some shit like that, the little pencil and all that stuff. Like
Mhm.
kids were doing that. They're summoning demons and stuff like that. We just gotta make sure that we pay more attention to our children and don't just leave them alone
Mhm.
because they're quiet and not breaking anything. That's all I want
Mhm.
to say.
I agree. And it's interesting because I feel like the society is sneaking stuff like this into stuff that is more acceptable, like the TV shows, what the 13 Reasons Why. I know a lot of people kind of like that show, but a lot of the kids I work with say they watch that and that's where, they got ideas to do certain things. And it seems like, oh, we're trying to be proactive about, suicide and homicidal thoughts and things, but it's encouraging the kids like the Momo challenge to why don't you try it out, or if you get so upset you can do this too. And a lot of those kids aren't realizing that those people are actually actors and actresses. They're alive. That girl didn't die in real life. She's with her family, and if you did what she did, you wouldn't be alive and you wouldn't be with your family and going through what it means to actually not really be alive anymore, because like you said, they're children and they don't really understand what they're doing and what it means to go that far and not be able to take it back.
Children are very impressionable. They listen to what they think an adult
Mhm.
figure is telling them because that's just how kids are. They haven't understand the meaning of free thought yet, the meaning to listen to something or not yet. So
Mhm.
that's very unfortunate. But going back to, we're going to leave the Momo challenge alone. I just want to talk about that a little bit because it's been on my mind.
Mhm.
It's like the fact that someone is that clever to figure out a way to hurt children like that is insane.
Mhm.
People are talking about, Heidi says, and now iPhones and iPads are given to young children to keep them occupied. That is awful. It's very awful. It's
Mhm.
very awful. They're in another room by themselves looking at it. Uh, my mother says this is a very grave phenomenon that these things are attacking our children's lives. Yes,
Mhm.
it's very, 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 very bad, and just it's sickening to know that that's going on. So, with that being said, I'm gonna transition a little bit over to, we're still talking about Andrea and how she handles children. Like, I want to ask you a little bit about what's it like to like deal with other people's kids. Like,
Mhm.
how do you? Because most people, you have your own son, you have a
Mhm.
bond with your kid. Like when you're dealing with other people's kids, how are you able to get them to open up to you about what's going on with them? Like, how do you identify what's the issue with them? Like, as far as like if they are dealing with some kind of mental condition like anxiety or something like that.
Mhm. So I want go in with a lot of energy to let them know, like, I'm excited about being here with you and getting to know you and being able to possibly be a part of some of the deepest, darkest parts of your life. So I go in and I try to, it's a thing where, where I'm trying to get them to match my energy eventually. The first day they might not, they might look at me like, wow, this lady's kind of crazy. Why is she so excited? And we're getting ready to talk about some real hardcore stuff, and I'm just there to encourage them that you can get through this. And I work with so many kids that already do. So I'm kind of like a person to let them know that I've seen people time after time dealing with the same exact things you're dealing with, whether it's depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, bullying, feeling alone, uh, abuse at the house. And I just encourage them to know that although you're in something right now, to keep the optimism that you can get out of it, that you have the ability to utilize yourself. And I also like to tell them in the beginning, like, you are the expert about you. You know, mom doesn't know you better than you. I don't know you better than you. Um, so we're going to use that. And I'm kind of like an outside person to help you put like a puzzle piece together. You might have a piece over here and a piece over there. And by listening to your stories, I want to help you put those pieces together so that life starts to make sense and you're able to deal with the challenges that that come your way. That will, and I also, encourage them that you will continue to have challenges. So the faster we learn how to deal with things that come up, the easier it'll be for you to work through those things throughout life. um,
So pretty much you're just really good at dealing with children and extracting the information that you need from them. You make them get into a comfort zone where they're able to open up to you, and then that's how you're able to figure out what's the issue and get them able to open up to you, let you know everything.
Yep. So that's a big part of it is building the rapport, that relationship where they feel comfortable. I let them know this is your time. If you don't have enough, if it was the Alex show, let's say I'm like, this is the Alex show. This whole hour is about you. So whatever it is that's going on, whatever it is you want to bring up, and I'm very open with them. If it's something about, something taboo you can't talk about in your house, something that you've never said out of your mouth, this is the time that you can, bring it out. And I try to get creative with them, with different activities or drawing, or if they like to write poetry or music. So, figuring out the best way that child or young person can understand things and try to meet them where they are and build that relationship. Yeah.
So a very popular condition that people like to label kids as having is ADHD,
Mhm.
attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Yep.
So they just try to they label them with their kids because they're very hyperactive or they have energy
Mhm.
like that. How do you decipher if they really are dealing with that disorder or it's just a kid like having a lot of energy?
Well, what I do is one, ask lots and lots of questions. When first have your first session, we do something that used to be called the mental health assessment, and now the state has changed the paperwork a bit. But it's similar, and it basically asks about like the past, the present, the future, of the child. And I also, interview the parents, I interview the teachers, the counselors that they trust, and really try to get a holistic picture of the child. Because sometimes it can be situational. Sometimes it could be that they're just a little boy that should have a lot of energy. I recently had a client who I didn't think needed ADHD medication. And so I also, in part of my role at my job, is I link them with psychiatric care where they see a doctor that prescribes psychotropic medications to deal with stuff like ADHD. And I go in there and I advocate for those kids and I say, hey, I'm not sure. Some parents are trying to get a check to, get them started on medication. Some parent, people have different motives of why they're trying to do it. And so what I do, like I said, is do a thorough investigation to see if this is really what the kid's dealing with. And then I also advocate, and I'll go along with the parent to a certain extent, and I'll say, hey, I don't necessarily see what you reported, and but I'm going to continue my investigation, and I'll also get you an evaluation with a doctor. And then I'll, like I said, give the doctor a heads up. I don't necessarily see this. These are the findings that I've had, and report back, let them have their evaluation, and the doctor typically would agree or, say, yeah, this kid can utilize it based off all the findings that you came up with from the different areas the child is in.
So you just pretty much just tell the parents like you guys don't know what you're talking about.
In a nice way sometimes,
I'm the expert
cuz
and I went to school
mhm.
for this and I know what I'm talking about and you are not any way knowledgeable of how to figure out what's going on with your children. No, I'm kidding. Kind of.
No, no,
Kind
no,
of.
no. No, I really try to educate the parents because I think, since so much information is accessible to people, they kind of like, oh my God, my child does this check mark box, this check mark box, this one, this one, this one. And they diagnose their kids and they'll come in like, my baby is bipolar. And I'm like, well, you have to be a certain age before you can be bipolar. They don't know all the real details of it. And
I'm
so I
sorry, I
don't,
laughed. It's just
what
I laugh
it's okay.
because WebMD is very
Uh-huh.
popular. Like when people search something that's going on, at WebMD automatically tells them that they have cancer every time, no matter what.
Yep.
Your
It's
your elbow hurts, you have cancer. Your finger hurts, you have cancer. You sprained your
so
knee,
people do
cancer.
that with mental health. Oh my God, I have post traumatic stress disorder, and so it's really important to just dispel some of their myths and encourage them to also try therapy first. So, you don't necessarily have to go. I'm an advocate for let's talk it out. Let's talk it out first and see our process that we can get before we move further. And some parents are like, of course, because I'm in crisis work, they're at the end of their rope. They're like, no, they need to see the doctor. He need medication. And I'm like, we never talked it out yet. I want
Ther-
to, get to know him first.
Therapy is very instrumental and it is very important for all ages. I always encourage people to go to therapy before they try anything else. Don't try to self-diagnosing yourself. Go sit down with a professional and just have a conversation with them. But one thing that's really becoming difficult with therapy is finding a good therapist for you. You have to find somebody that fits you. Someone you feel
Yeah.
comfortable with. And that's very important to just find somebody that you feel comfortable with because even with myself, I've been in therapy before and I had some counselors that I just didn't feel comfortable with. I feel like that they weren't really like drawn in or uh, really mindful of how I felt. I had some therapists that I felt like were kind of self-absorbed. Like
Right.
everything I talked about that they try to relate to a story about their life. Like I gave a fuck about what they had to say about their life. It's my therapy section. I pay this much money to come
Right.
sit down and talk to you. I don't care about your life. Just saying.
Right. And I'm happy you kind of said that. That's one of the things that I did want to share with your audience is like I think of course because the point of this show is to break the stigma, to talk it out, to get out there and take care of yourself for on the insides. And I think people get to a point where they're like, well, where do I start, or how do you find a therapist that you like? And so like what I've come to know is your therapist is like every other person that service you in a real intimate way. So for example, like your doctor or your dentist. If I go to a dentist and they look like they're not sanitary, they look like they don't know what they're doing, he smells like alcohol, I'm not coming back. If I go to a doctor's office and he's trying to give me medication that's got somebody else's name on it, just something that just doesn't fit right, or he just I'm not going back. And likewise with your therapist, like you said, you didn't, like some of your therapists because they didn't fit your personality, and that can happen. You can go to see a therapist and don't like your experience. That doesn't mean like you don't like therapy. You necessarily didn't like that experience, and I just encourage people to keep trying until you find somebody. Just like a hairstylist, you go to one lady or a barber and they cut your hair and you like, "Oh, this looks terrible. I'm never going back." And then you try somebody else and you like, "Yeah, now that's what I'm talking about." And it's just like that with your mental health. You got to keep trying until you find that person that can come up with analogies that fit your life, that can meet you where you are, that can encourage you, that can challenge you. I tell my clients like some days you're not going to like me. Therapy is not all about just happy rainbows. I say rainbows and butterflies. Some days I'm going to say, hey, you said you wanted to get a job, but you're still smoking weed. What if you got to get dropped and you don't get the job? And you're going to come in here sad that you're still broke. I would say that to one of my clients. Like, you're telling me you want this, but you're doing this. How does that make sense? And that's, of course, once I build relationship. That's not like my first meeting with anybody, but really, really going out there finding somebody that fits your needs and who you feel comfortable with, and you can get everything out that is on the inside.
So Brittany says it's important to talk it out, which I completely agree with. Find a therapist and let them know what's going on with you. B Live Show says get to the root of the matter. Sometimes some things require some deep root digging and not superficial. Omar says, find a person you're comfortable talking to. Like you said, that's very
Mhm.
important to find someone that you are able to open up to and able to be yourself with. That's the main thing, to find someone that's
Mhm.
accepting of who you are and the issues that you have going on, and someone that's able to relate to you. That's the biggest thing when it comes to therapy. You need to find somebody who relates to you and are able to have a conversation with you and you feel like that they actually care. So if you have to do some shopping around, then that's you go ahead and do that. Don't just go find a
Right.
therapist and be like, okay, this is my therapist now. No,
Mhm.
you can find someone else. Trust me.
Yep.
Find someone who's
And
trustworthy, challenging,
and
and make you
therapists,
accountable.
exactly. And that's a key thing. Like, don't find you a yes man therapist. Yeah, that sounds great. I think you're trying hard. I, you know, I think you should be, with somebody that is going to really challenge you.
So I just want to say something. Um, I want to go ahead and ask you, Andrea. I'm gonna get a little bit
Yep.
personal. Sorry about this. Have you been to a therapist?
I have, in my program, we were actually required to go get therapy as a um I guess like a so what it's like to sit on the other side of the couch. That's traditional. We don't necessarily have to be on couches now. But so I went to a therapist twice at the on while I was in school, and I actually didn't like the two therapists that I had, also like the ones you had mentioned. But I didn't stop going because I wanted to see what it would be like, if the relationship could develop later on. Because what if I had clients that came in and I didn't necessarily fit what they were looking for. I wanted to challenge myself to continue to go and see how the experience would have been. And I'm actually currently, I've been talking to some of my friends about uh, getting me a new therapist now to, practice what I preach. I'm really big on self care and talking it out. And of course, I do it with friends and family, but to go to a professional and also be able to say I do this too, and it's great.
So just to get back to being a little bit more personal and ask you questions that are going to trigger your mind a little bit. I want to ask you about what are some things that you feel like are self care related. Like, what are some things you do even outside of therapy that you do to pretty much like for your own mental health, things to help you deal with anxiety, or say if you're feeling down,
Hmm.
like depression. What are some things that you do personally?
Right. Some things that I really like to do. I love spas and massages, and one of my favorite places is King Spa. Like going there and just having time to be quiet. I pour a lot into people, just not my clients, but people in general. That's really what I was made for, with God. And so pouring out so much, sometimes you have to, go back and just being quiet is good to me. Being in the house, listening to sermons is very great for me. Like on the way to work, on the way to different, I see people in the school, the home, or at one of the offices, and in between, just filling myself back up, listening to the Bible or whatever. That's very helpful for me because I'll get a word that once I go into the next place, it was for that person that I'm getting ready to meet. And I'm like, oh, that's why I just heard that. This is great. And then I can pour it out again. And then, so those are just a few things that I do. Back in the day, I used to run, but I got to get that back together.
I'm a big advocate for physical health and doing physical activities for your mental health. They are very, very, very
Mhm.
correlated in a huge way.
Yep.
So that's why I tell
They
people.
are.
In previous episodes, I let them know like when I feel myself being anxious or something like that, I go to the gym and just like I sweat it out. I work it out, and
Mhm.
that helps me out tremendously. Even if I'm just lifting weights or hopping on a stairmaster or doing some pickup basketball, whatever I do to stay active, that helps me out. It releases the endorphins, help me feel good, make me feel better. So
Mhm.
again, I wanna just say that finding what makes you comfortable and finding ways for you. Everybody's different, so not everyone has the same outlets in life. Everyone has
Mhm.
things that they find that make them feel better when they're anxious or when you're doing anxiety. No one has the same exact thing, but the whole purpose is to give people ideas of things they could try so they could find something that they relate to.
Mhm.
So
I agree.
I just want to, and I want to, go ahead and get a little bit more personal. I want to ask you a little bit more personal questions. So,
Okay.
when you were growing up, tell me about a time when you first felt like you dealt with anxiety, like when you were a kid or even a teenager, young adult. Tell me about your first encounter with it.
I would say I would have anxiety or nervousness when I started competing in track. um, I would feel, like, oh my God, I know I've been practicing all week. I know that I know how to. I was a hurdler. I know that I know the techniques of doing this, but I would get to that line sometime, and I would be like, oh, what if you don't do the three steps in between? What if you lose your count and hit that hurdle or something? So I think in competing was probably the first area I could remember, maybe.
Competing could be very, very, very nerve wracking. So most people that are deal with like any type of sport, any type of
Hmm.
athletes that they're about to perform, when they're sitting in the locker room, there's a level of anxiety that comes over them. Me and John talked about it last week because John, he's a journalist. We talked about how before you go live, even with the show, you're sitting around and there's a level of anxiety that comes on because you are about
Hmm.
to perform, in front of people. So
Hmm.
a good way, you have to find your way to feel comfortable with that. You have to find your way to relax and get in the zone. For me personally, I listen to music before I go live. It helps me out every time. Every time I listen to music, you know, 8 o'clock comes around, boom, let's do this. I'm ready. Come on. I get on, have the guests, and we just knock it out the park. And again, everyone has a different thing that they do that helps them out. Music, exercise, or
Hmm.
reading. I really encourage people to read because you do learn a lot, not only from the book, but you learn a lot about yourself, about how you feel about certain things just by reading certain types of books. That's just how I feel personally.
Hmm. Nice.
So, Andrea, another thing I want to cover tonight is how, like we talked about finding a therapist, but
Hmm.
how do you feel about the whole concept of being put on medication? A lot of people are scared of being put on certain meds for certain things that they're dealing with.
Hmm.
How do you feel about, like, what's your thoughts about being put on medication?
I my thoughts about it is it should be the last resort. Um, which is what I kind of it's kind of how I work. Um, I have seen some extreme cases where, like, kids have had multiple traumas, seeing parents get killed, sexual abuse, all kinds of stuff where, the medication comes in and it helps them, like you said, with that anxiety, with those flashbacks, with that sleeping at night, with just getting on a routine. And some people have, to learn the science behind like psychotropic medications has been interesting. One of my peers, he's like really big with knowing like all the details about him, even though he's not a doctor. And how he kind of broke it down was like, maybe for some people that suffer from depression, some of the medications can basically, he made it like in your brain you have parking spots, and if you're depressed or something, then there are things that are in the parking spots, and the medication can basically pull those things out of the parking spot so the dopamine can circulate through the brain. So I think that it can be useful when done appropriately and being managed. But I don't personally like to jump straight to medicine. I think there are occasions where it's necessary, like schizophrenia, bipolar, um, like those things. But other things, I think like talking it out can really make an impact in people's lives.
So I've been an advocate for staying away from medication because
Okay.
most people, granted, if you absolutely need it, like you said,
Mhm.
yes, but for the
Mhm.
most part, make it a last resort because medication
Yeah.
does, from my perspective, it affects your mental thought process. You can get hooked on it. You're not able to function without it. That's just how drugs are. From my perspective, there's so many
Mhm.
different ways. Like even I had a guest before on a previous episode a while back. My guy James Campbell came on and said, "Yo, meditation is the way to go." Meditation and yoga is the way to go to clear your mind and help you relax and feel better about certain things. But again, like you said, if medication is the answer, then yes, absolutely. If it's the only resort that you have, but it should be the last resort, like you said, right?
Yeah. Yep. I think that's kind of what I'm saying.
That's
Last
exactly.
resort on my side. But there are people that go different routes and have different opinions about that. So that's why it's important to make sure you find somebody that has your best interest, that is educated about different mediums of healing and exploring, additional options other than just talking to. Like it's other things that you can do. And that's the part of therapy is creating your own alternatives. One of the first things that we learned is like I think a lot of misconception is that a therapist is to fix your life or to tell you what to do. Like people come in like, well, what am I supposed to do? And it's like you're supposed to come up with your own plan. I'm just here to support you in a sense. If you talk, when I hear people telling their stories, they have the answers that they've been looking for in their stories. So I'll just pull it out. Like, man, you just said, you know, you need to stop calling that person so much because it really breaks your heart every time they don't call. That's their answer. Don't call so much. Or, you know, you know what I mean? Figure out a way to communicate with them that doesn't involve calling or let them call you. So a lot of times most times people have their own answers and they just have to talk it out to get to the answers within themselves.
So the chat room has chimed in heavily.
Okay.
Heidi says she has a question. She said, "My daughter's coping with a condition, medical, and she wants to see a therapist to help her cope with it. Should I take her, or should I try to help her as a mom? Should I take it, or do you want this one?"
Um, you both can go. You want to go first?
So Heidi, for me, just for me sitting back and knowing what I know
Mhm.
about therapy, absolutely take her. You want to take her to
Mhm.
a professional that's an expert in the field of identifying and helping deal with mental illnesses or dealing with day to day
Mhm.
problems in life. This is what they do. This is their profession. They went to school for
Mhm.
it. They studied it. You want to go. You want to, and then like we said earlier, find one that fits her personality, fits
Yeah.
her needs. You don't want to just find one that, oh, we suggest going to this one. No, you find one that she's comfortable with. Like we said,
Mhm.
that's the most important thing.
Yep. And I would say, Mom, use this opportunity because the great thing is that she opened up to you and is talking about it. So use this opportunity to, like Alex said, reach out and get some help professionally, but also build on you and her communication. And that professional, I love to bring parents in my sessions because a lot of times the issues are the parents, sad to say. And I'm not saying that's your particular case, but it's some things that, you might not know that are affecting her. It could be simple, like, oh, mom, you don't come to my basketball games. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't know it mattered that much to you. So to help, the therapist could help you advocate and get those conversations out because they're kids. How am I supposed to tell my mom that what she's doing is affecting my life? That therapist can practice with them to have that conversation with you. I've had a father come in our session, and the girl wrote him a note about her feelings towards him, and it was powerful to hear him accept all the things that she had to say, and then to later hear how their relationship just started to blossom. He was more intentional on picking her up more often and calling in the morning before she went to school, and it was just one conversation that changed that for that family. So I would encourage you to like I said, use this opportunity to build some more relationship with your daughter, and also to get some help to pull more things out that you might not be able to do just because you're mom, and she might want to tell you and just don't know how. Or he, I don't, did she say a daughter?
She's definitely said her daughter. Sorry about that,
Sorry.
Heidi. Um,
Yeah, your daughter. Sorry, Heidi.
and Ashley says, Andrea, how do you think we can reach those who are struggling with their mental health? Are there any real signs that someone is struggling? And is there a moment when a loved one should step in?
I think absolutely checking is never a bad thing to do. People, like Alec, you were saying earlier, like social media is, we didn't used to have that, but now that we do, use it. People are posting stuff. Oh, my heart is broken. I don't know if I can do that. All of those things, and that's your stepping stone. Hey, I see you were talking about this. I'm just checking in with you. And have those conversations. One of my professors that I really appreciated, he said, like, you don't really have real relationships with people if you aren't able to be real with them. If you're not able to say those things that are taboo or the elephant in the room, then you really don't have the relationship that that you think you have. So I'm my friend's friend that is like, hey girl, you said you were trying to lose weight, but you eating 3 burgers and you got 2 side of fries. So hand me over one of those fries. Having those hard conversations where somebody else would just sit there like, thinking in their head, I know she's trying to lose weight, but this isn't a good idea. Holding them accountable in a sense, and having those hard conversations. One of my good friends was just concerned about someone who's basically calling out for help on social media, and I really encouraged her to say something, and she's like, oh, but she'll get mad at me, and I'm like, she'll thank you later once she works through her own stuff. For the most part, people are grateful for that. Thanks for being honest with me. Everybody else didn't say anything. So be the person that does say something. You could save a life. You could build a relationship. You can help with resources. So say something.
Definitely say something. Don't sweep it under the rug, because it's very important that you let the people know that you care. So Tequila says, I would try a holistic approach before I do medication again. Yeah, medication is not where it's at. Um, Again, my mom said there's some cases where it's needed. Lovely K says, you can make anyone happy just like no one else can make you happy, because real happiness doesn't work like that. You have to learn to be happy on your own. Then you can start worrying about being happy with someone else. That's true. Heidi agrees with everything she said. She's like, she may think I don't know anything, haha, so better take her right away to a professional. Tequila asked a very important question. She said, what if the parents don't want to attend the sessions? So,
Mm.
from my experience, I mean, you could bring them to the session, but you don't have to sit in on it. There's usually a
Hmm.
weight room, right? Andrea, is there
Yeah.
usually like a
Yeah,
waiting
there
room?
there are weight rooms, but I'm wondering if she means like, what if the parent is like refusing to come into the session? Like if I invited a parent and they didn't want to be in the meeting, they're like, I don't want to come in there because I don't need therapy. The child does, or the person does, and that happens sometime. And it's important to prepare. For me, I prepare my clients for, like the girl I told you that wrote dad a note. I said, what if he says everything you wrote is a lie? Or what if he rejects it? To process with them, that is an option. The only person you can control is yourself. But if you were able, and I tell parents in the beginning, sometimes we might invite you back to talk about you and the client's relationship, to give them a heads up, and also to let them know that I'll give them a call before they come in, so they're not like blindsided. Like, I'm not just gonna throw you in the room and then she's gonna be like, Mom, you were never there for me. I hate you. I'll let them know, she's having some feelings towards, the first part of her life, you weren't there. And now that you're there, she has a hard time respecting you because, she wasn't raised by you. And so I will give that parent an opportunity to know when you sit down, you're gonna hear something similar to that, but from your child. So that can happen, and just the more education that people have about it, of how they can help other people heal, I think the more. I've never had a parent refuse to come in. And if it was the other way that Alex said, yeah, it's definitely a waiting room, and you can drop them off and come back in an hour. So
So Gladys is going off right now. She says people can say that I can call on them and etc. But I know it's not true. Laugh out loud. If I don't feel it in my heart, then it's not true. That's you could definitely tell if someone's sincere or not. If they're being genuine,
Mhm.
if you could help them or not, or you could come to them or not. She said I don't know why,
Mhm.
but that's just me. Actions speak louder than words. That's 100% true. She said if I feel like you don't act like you're there for me, then whatever you say is invalid. You could definitely sense when someone's actually there for you or not, or if they're just saying that they're there for you, but they don't intend on helping you for real. So Tequila says no. What if the parent is the cause and they don't want to address their own issues? They're placing on their children. So if
Mhm.
their parents are projecting their own mental issues on their children, is what she's saying
Mhm.
right now.
And that happens a lot. So, a lot of time parents haven't dealt with the stuff, and then it, translates go, it becomes a cycle in the household. And so I'm very honest with my clients in acknowledging those patterns that they mentioned. My mom and her mom don't have a relationship, and her mom don't have a relationship, and now it looks like me and my mom aren't going to have a relationship. So I empower them to say, you can start to change that. You can be the person that is the bigger person. You could be the person that seeks out therapy for you and your mom. You could be the person that meets your mom where she is, and doesn't take everything that she says personal, so that you don't have these cutoffs in your relationships that are easy to do. Like, people do a lot of easy things in life with relationships, and I just utilize my role to say, hey, it'll be easy not to talk to her anymore. You won't get any headaches. You won't be talked about. You won't feel sad, that this is the way the relationship is. But to work together and to get through that, and to have a relationship of substance, man, you will really be proud of that, and to know that you were the initiator of that. And then they begin to try to do that work, and they come and say, I tried this week and it was hard, but I'm gonna try again this week. And it's encouraging to hear these stories and people to try.
I mean, if you're willing to give it an effort, that's where it starts. If you're willing to try to resolve
Hmm.
issues, or you're willing to try to be, if you're in your kid's life, or even sometimes the kids help their parents out. Sometimes
Hmm.
they ask them like, "Hey, I know you dealing with this and blah blah blah. Well, why don't you try doing this? Or try doing this differently, or trying to go see this person."
Hmm.
It's not always about the parents helping the kids. Sometimes the children have to be the more mature ones, and that's kind of weird to say, but it's the truth though.
Yes,
Sometimes,
it
sometimes,
is.
sometimes you you sound like you got a instance or example.
uh, yeah, I see stuff like it a lot. It is sad that has to happen, but God is intentional, and some you can't get rid of your kids. Like, those are your kids, so He's gonna use them. If it's something that you missed along the way, He might be like, "Hey, you didn't get this growing up," or "You missed this part," and your kid is in your face with it now, and they get mad. Parents don't like to hear you drop the ball here, or you can be doing better in this area, especially from their kid. Old fashioned stuff. You don't tell me what to do, or I'm the mom, that type of thing. But sometimes the kid knows. I've seen youth that are like, "Mom, I don't know why my mom is with that guy. He's no good for our family, for her," and the kid knows that, and they encourage their parent. But you know the parent has the right to make their own decisions because they're the adult. But to hear it from your kid is like, wow, am I missing something, that even a child can see this, or even my kid can see this? So I encourage kids to, be honest with their parents, because they never know how they can impact them, just like, their parents impact them.
The honesty in children is irreplaceable. Children
For
are,
sure.
are definitely blatantly honest with anything that's going on in front of them. They don't hold back at all. They have no filters at all. They're gonna
Hmm.
be completely honest with you. That's my mother said. She said kids are blatantly honest. And Gladys says my son is only 3, and one day he came up to me and asked if I was okay, and I honestly was this specific day. But him asking me made my day so much better because I know his
Hmm.
love is the realest. Children are, like we said, they're completely honest, and they know exactly what's going on. They can feel what's going on with you. They definitely are. It's crazy how how they are able to realize what's going on. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And I also want to like encourage everybody that's listening, like be really like really pay attention to the things that the people around you that love you, not just anybody, but people that love you, people that want to see the best for you are mentioning about your character, about your decisions. And not to say do whatever everybody says, but to take it in consideration, especially if you're hearing it from more than one person that loves you. You hear it from your best friend, you hear it from your mom, you hear it from your coworker best friend. Man, do I really have a problem with being late? I'm just coming up with a scenario because everybody's, mention it to me. Or am I really impatient or get irritable real quick all the time? Because, people crack jokes about it, but why are they cracking those jokes? Really paying attention to the conversations that you're having because they reveal a lot about how you're perceived and possibly even some stuff that you want to work on and get better at.
So the chat room is going off right now. B Live Show says
Hey,
kids
chat room.
kids are not blind to things that we are blind to. They really aren't. They are definitely able to zone in on reality a lot better than we are because we get lost in the fact that we gotta pay bills and they aren't. Okie doke 0808 says children are our future. Yes, they are. Liv Schultz says, "Ben, my children were small. God spoke through them constantly. Did they really? Maybe." Um, Ashley says, especially when they hug you for no apparent reason. Yeah, that's the best feeling in the world. Ashley says, yes, people gotta take stuff in sometimes. Lovely K says, life seems to go on without effort. When I am filled with music, she equals my outreach therapy. Again, like I said earlier, music is my therapy. I have to listen to music constantly. I love music. I keep headphones on me at all times, no matter where I'm at.
Hmm.
So what my mom was talking about, I'll never forget when I told her. I said one of the most powerful gifts you could ever give somebody is forgiveness, and sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds to forgive somebody for times that they wronged you in life, and that's
Hmm.
100% the truth, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's nice. And I like to tell people too, like forgiveness is for you. You carrying around all this bitterness and animosity towards someone is like you got on a backpack of, keeping. I'm mad at you about this, and I'm mad at her for this, and I'm mad at him for this, and you holding it, and you holding it. Keyword, you holding it, and that person not thinking about you. They moved on. They still say hello to you when they see you. They don't have anything that they're holding on to. So letting it go is pivotal for yourself.
Apparently, my mom says I was only 7 when I said that. Wow, that was a very long time ago. Unfortunately. Um, so we are at the 48-minute mark. I want to ask you, Andrea. Do you
Mhm.
have anything you want to share with the people? Any last minute like information or anything you want to throw
Um,
out there?
yeah. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, for other people, because you just don't know who you're helping. Don't be afraid to seek out mental health services. It has been a taboo thing for a while, and it's starting to become more embraced because it helps. I spoke to someone one time and they were like, he didn't even get through his story. And he was like, I feel better that I was able to say that. And finding somebody skilled, I really work with the kids that I work with, and I just try to pull out of them the things that they never wanted to say and find creative ways to do it. And then they get over it. They get past it. They work through it, and not instantly, take care of yourself and each other.
Heidi says forgiveness heals you more than anyone else,
Mhm.
and that's 100% true. B. Lucio said you are doing great things, Andrea, impactful and liberating.
Thank you.
You are
Glory to
doing
God.
you are doing a great job to help people out, and especially the children.
Amen.
Definitely helping them and identifying things in them that their parents are not able to identify, because they aren't as knowledgeable as you are, and that's a great thing. Ashley says therapy is a process. It's not, and like we said earlier, you're not gonna find a therapist. Like sometimes it takes a couple of them to find one that you feel comfortable with. But once you find one you're comfortable with, make sure that you go see them regularly and you are very open about what's going on with you. And that's the only way you're gonna feel liberated from what's going on. It's a process. Healing is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes, some things take a lifetime, unfortunately. But again,
And Alec, I'm sorry.
go
And
ahead.
you said one good thing that I also want to mention is like, not, don't just go there to say I got it out. This is it. You're gonna go in there and you gonna create alternatives with the professional, and then I tell people we will be wasting our time to sit in this room coming up with all these great ideas, and then you leave and don't apply them to your life. So utilize the skills that you're learning, challenge yourself in the areas that are hard and uncomfortable if you really want to see the process that you're looking for, the progress that you're looking for.
It's not gonna happen overnight. Like we said, it's a process. It's completely a process. Tequila says you have to do the work to make it happen. That's 100% true. B. Lipso says she's really glad you came on, and it's all about accountability for you to be able to recognize what's going on with you and realize that you need help, and that again, it's a process. Like you guys know what that word means. Process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a couple days. It's not going to happen in a week. Again, some things take weeks, months, years, even to heal from or move on from. So that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay that you have to take that long to deal with it. That's all I'm saying. So after sessions do work, Tequila says, again, she says about accountability. The chat room has just been going off all night. My mom said it builds character. It's all about tough love. Heidi,
And challenge yourself. Yeah.
again, Heidi says she agrees with us. Sometimes it's harsh. Yeah, you got to be real with yourself, and you got to be real with others. Let them know sometimes the extra push is what you have to do with people to get them to go see things through your perspective and see that what they need to do. So, if Andrea, you have anything else, if you don't have anything else,
That's it.
that's it from your end. I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. If you didn't listen
Thank
tonight,
you.
I want to thank you guys for listening back. If you listen back to it, and I'll be sure to have the conversation with you guys again next week on the Let's Talk It Out podcast.